Hello, this is a presentation that I created based on the article that I was assigned to read. The article title is Emotions, Attributions of ELT Pre-Service Teachers and Their Effects on Teaching Practice by Marisa Mendez. The article basically aims at presenting an understanding of how pre-service courses should include classroom management strategies, as well as the social-emotional support which teachers in training may need in order to develop an identity regarding their teaching practice. I have divided the presentation in four different parts. In the first one, I will talk about pre-service teachers' experiences and the connection with the teaching practice. In the second, I will describe the context of the study. Then we will look at the attribution theory, definition, relevance, and practical applications. And finally, I will present the results from the study in the article. Then, first, I would like to give you some context. Historically, research conducted regarding emotions has been primarily connected with how learners' motivation is impacted. So normally when we talk about feelings in the classroom, it was more about the learner's feelings rather than the teacher's feelings. Then some researchers have somehow also uh, done or carry out some research into experienced teachers' emotions, but this is more connected with changes in their working environment. So how they feel after they experience, for example, a job change or teaching with a different course book, for example. But in this case, the article, well, the author presents a context in which there is an adverse or there are adverse conditions that involve English learners being reluctant to learning English, also the absence of vocations for teachers in training, and the unfavorable conditions which teaching in Mexico entails. It is very relevant to realize that although every teacher and the way in which they experience emotions are unique, there is a strong correlation between these experiences and the context in which the experiences take place. Um, this study concentrates, as I said before, on how teachers in training, not experienced, but those novice, if you may call them that way, so especially pre-service teachers, feel particularly during their teaching practices. So how is not also about the input they receive, it's more about how they implement or how they bring to practice the input they are being provided in these initial teacher training courses. So there are a few studies, you can see the names there at the bottom, which concluded that there are basically three main emotions experienced by teachers in training. The first one is enjoyment. Some teachers feel really good when they are learning how to teach. It's a new experience. Then some of them feel anxious, probably not knowing whether they are doing well or not, to what extent they may be negatively affecting or positively affecting their learners, and also anger towards themselves, towards the institution in which they are being trained, or the tutors. Okay, so these are the main emotions experienced usually by teachers in training. Then, from the article, I took this quote, which I think is very relevant, since it is not very common to associate teachers in training beliefs, emotions, which are created during training and their teaching. So this is about how beliefs play that important role in how you perceive experiences or situations in the classroom, and therefore the emotions that those experiences create and the impact that that has on your teaching. The context of this study this study was conducted in 2015 in a university in the southeast of Mexico. The participants were 15 last year undergraduate students that were doing their teaching practices, what they call placements. Out of these 15 undergraduate students, 8 were female, 7 were male. Their ages went from 20 to 23 years. They were teaching for the first time, and the study or the period in which they were observed was from 8 to 12 weeks, okay, 3 hours each week. Then the what? This study was a qualitative study or with a qualitative approach. It included semi-structured interviews, 15 of them. Also, 118 different journal entries about the reflections on their teaching, and there were 30 practical teaching sessions, or what we call teaching practices. All of these analyzed and data being analyzed with content analysis. Then, before we go in further into the description of the study, I would like to clarify what attribution theory refers to. We have this quote from Weiner that says that humans are motivated to know why an event has occurred or happened to them. So attribution theory is one of the most relevant characteristics of this article. It refers to the uh, or attribution theory states that people attempt to understand events and actions by attributing intentions, beliefs, and feelings to these events. Okay, so this theory explains why some teachers in training undergo a less stressful journey during their teaching practices, while others even leave the profession as a result of the negative feelings or emotions experienced during their teaching practices. So basically, this theory may somehow explain why some teachers find, if not their calling, they find it kind of easy to become teachers. They enjoy it, even though it might be a bit challenging, but it's something that they can manage, while others feel overwhelmed by the same situation, in this case, the training course. Okay, attribution theory basically works in this way. So we have the question, what causes people to have certain behaviors? Well, something inside the person that is, or within the person, which basically refers to their personality traits, and something outside the person, that is external situation, the context in which this person, in this case, is being trained. So from these two, we have two different kinds of attributions, internal and external attributions. Internal attributions are based on something, as I said before, inside the individual. So this one is connected more with the behavior of the person being observed. Let's say their natural character, the way they are. Okay, so while external attributions basically are based on, okay, something external, as the name says, but it has basically nothing to do with the individual. So this is the situation in which the individual is being tested or is being trained in this case. And normally internal attributions are also called dispositional attributions, okay? And external are also called situational. So in the first one, when we make a dispositional attribution, we refer to the person reacting to a situation, to an event based on what he or she believes in, personally speaking, previous experiences, their personality, while when we make a situational attribution, we tend to believe that it is not us, it was the tutors, it was the institution, it was the learners that produced certain effect. So one is more towards us, and the other is more about the context or the situation in which the individual is being developed. Which were the results? Which were the results of this study? So basically, the study concluded that there are both positive and negative emotions, okay? And although there are some positive feelings, for example, enthusiasm, satisfaction, happiness, experienced by the teachers in training, and these emotions are the result of the teachers in training and learners interaction. So basically, these three positive emotions are the result of teachers seeing learners achieve, for example, results, learners telling them, thank you very much, teacher, it was very nice, your lesson was very nice, I learned this, I learned that, and this is always beneficial, okay? But as you can see here, right? So they are the results of the interactions. And these feelings benefit both the learners and the teachers. So normally when these positive emotions are generated, the teachers feel more engaged with the course, with the planning, with the delivery of the lessons, and the learners feel also probably normally may feel more committed towards their learning, participating, etc. However, while these positive feelings normally emerge, also we have negative emotions, okay? And it is clear that negative emotions or events may happen to all teachers in training. For example, technology may be one of these negative situations. So sometimes the recording cannot be played, the projector is not working, sometimes they have problems with internet connections, for example. Sometimes teachers in training plan activities for a number of learners and that day only half of the learners arrive, etc. So it is clear that negative events will happen to teachers in training. However, it was discovered that those teachers that have what they call vocations may react better to those events than those teachers or individuals who do not have the vocation or the calling. Okay, and obviously this will make also teachers in training more resilient in the end. However, these negative emotions that you have on the screen, despair, insecurity, frustration, worry, stress, normally are the result of conflicting feelings between their own beliefs and about the way they are being taught. Let me clarify this. When we come into a classroom, even when it's a teacher training course, it is a teacher training course, we have certain beliefs about how education works or how individuals learn. Sometimes these concepts that we have acquired through our life conflict somehow with the input or with information we receive from our tutors. So basically, that is what creates some of these negative emotions, like the way I'm being told to teach somehow contradicts my beliefs or the way I would like to be as a teacher. Okay, so particularly in the context of Mexico, many teachers in training involved in ELT or are involved in ELT because they could not access other mayors or they could not find another, let's say, path or professional path in life. So they do not have the vocation. And therefore, this also, in a way, may impact their motivation, the responsibility, the commitment they may have in the classroom, and obviously how they experience, okay, how they experience the way in which they are being trained. Then, some of the sources of negative emotions in pre-service teachers are basically students' poor participation, as I was telling you. So those teachers who do not have the vocation normally cannot connect with the students, and therefore the result is the students do not respond to them either. Then it could be with poor participation, or it can be reflected in students' passiveness, okay? Or totally the opposite. Sometimes, especially in terms of teaching young learners, sometimes kids, for example, or adolescents, they might be super noisy, moving around, shouting. So these are three main situations that are normally associated with the classroom or negative emotions being generated inside the classroom. However, we also have sources or external sources that generate these negative feelings. As I said before, the lack of vocation or motivation. Sometimes these teacher training courses are very overwhelming in terms of the input and the time, the time frame in which they are delivered. Normally, teachers are trained in a month, for example. So lots of input, lots of information. In the morning, for example, receiving input, in the afternoon teaching, etc. So normally teachers or teachers in training get very tired. Sometimes they are also imposed certain administrative responsibilities like lesson planning or writing assignments, for example. And in some cases, the training they receive, I mean, the input from the tutors is not does not have the quality they expected, for example, or tutors are being neglectful in a way, for example. So that also creates these negative feelings. Okay. Some of the conclusions from this study were basically the study concluded that although teachers in training experience both positive and negative feelings, that definitely affect both their perception and performance during their teaching practices. Mhm. Um, it was basically the negative feelings that have more lasting effect, let's say, or more powerful effect. However, those teachers that can manage those feelings, those negative feelings, can adjust better and they can survive, let's say, and then eventually they can become better teachers. Mhm. Another conclusion was also that teachers in training with vocation, as I said, can cope more positively, okay, and then they may struggle less, okay. Those ones that struggle more normally tend to quit. Then there is also evidence of the need to provide social-emotional support to help pre-service teachers construct their teacher identity through reflection. There is a lot of emphasis in initial teacher training courses on methodologies, on materials, on classroom management, but there is almost no support or social emotional support about the teacher's well-being. Normally tutors will not really ask you how you feel, how I may help you coping better with the course, do you need a break, for example. So these are things that do not normally happen in teacher training courses. And finally, there should be an inclusion of elements regarding the emotional generated by the shock of teaching for the first time. So in teacher training courses, there is no preparation, let's say, before sending teachers, okay, to teach learners. What I mean exactly is that normally they receive input information, and then in a very short period of time they are asked to put that input into practice. So there is not this kind of scaffolding or proper scaffolding, probably some mini teaching or mini presentations before longer presentations, probably some discussions, some reflection. So basically it's just kind of swim or sink approach in most initial teacher training courses. Now, I would like to conclude this presentation by talking about my own experience. In my experience, this is a recurrent topic in conversations with colleagues, especially those who have been teacher trainers. We know that we need to devote some time to talk to teachers in training about how they are feeling, whether they are struggling to meet course requirements, or simply if they realize this is not what they expected what they expected it would be. Most of this mentoring work is done unofficially. Those trainers that talk to teachers in training about these aspects normally do it off the record, outside the classroom, in which the tutor and the trainee are using their own free time, and normally this is not shared with others. What I like about the article is the proposal of including elements regarding the feelings or emotions generated by the shock of teaching for the first time as part of the course syllabus. So incorporating this into the syllabus. So I believe that it is not enough to know that this is happening, but maybe it's time to put it in the center of the discussion, since we know that there are always a couple of teacher trainers who become dropouts eventually. In every course, 2 or 3 people tend to drop out, okay? And at least one of those individuals who drop out or that outcome, let's say, of dropping out may be connected somehow, okay, with the reasons outlined and explained in this article. So therefore, I think that there is a need to start giving more visibility to emotional aspects as well as the technical ones, let's say. So let's start concentrating more on the technical aspects of teaching, and also start considering more the socio-emotional aspects that it entails. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.